So I was going to listen to a podcast, a particular podcast, uh, the Joe Rogan Experience, and I was just going to go over to his YouTube channel and put it on so that I could have it as background noise while I was putting my notes in the system. And it's pretty much gone. There's hardly anything there. He's done his move to Spotify, I guess, and that put me over the edge as far as having something to talk about in a YouTube video ramble for a few minutes with you guys, because now, how the hell am I supposed to get, like, the subtle red pill? Like, where you get, slowly boiled like a frog that they slowly raise the temperature on, that kind of red pilling. Because I don't like most of you fuckers out there with your red pills. But Joe Rogan, you know, I was liking some of the guests that he was getting on his show. Now I guess I'm just gonna have to go back to like the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe or some shit like that. Anyways, also in weird shitlords versus SJW's news, um, I checked out my Subscribestar after about a year of having it up, and I still have 0 subscribers on it. No doubt because I am not part of the alt-right, and I found something kind of weird. I don't know if this is the case, but it seems like I'm a little shadow banned on Subscribestar. Like, you can go to subscribestar.com/agent of doubt and find my profile. But if you try searching for my profile on their little search thing, some dude called Academic Agent comes up, who apparently is way more popular than me and likes to talk about alt-right things, and doesn't like to show his face on camera. By the way, if you think that people would not subscribe to you if you showed your face on camera, maybe it's true. Maybe. I'd shoot you straight. I'd tell you, But there are some people who chase their subscribers away because they have a face made for radio. Um, anyways, one thing I did learn today, because of a comment from Terrence Hypnonipple, was one of the things that was part of my rant yesterday, the whole hour-long video of me being pissed off about 2020, basically, and the government abandoning us. One thing I learned was that the issue of the N95 masks is a little bit more nuanced than I had said in that video, where I was complaining that, Trump is blaming it on Obama, but he had 3 years before the pandemic hit in his 4th year that he did not replenish the national stockpile of, protective equipment for healthcare workers. So, based on something that Terrence Hypnonipple said in a comment, I went and explored that a little bit further, and I learned that actually our national stockpile of masks in particular, but all PPE for healthcare workers, it's been tapped into a lot in the previous decade. So it first got really hit with the H1N1 virus in 2009 under the Obama administration, and also under this administration there were other things like Ebola and whatnot that also kept on slowly chipping away at it. But really, the stockpile hasn't been replenished since H1N1 in 2009. And see, I'd like to blame it on Obama, you know, lack of oversight over the people who are managing the stockpile, right? You put people in place, they should, you should check to see if they're, managing things properly. But looking into it a little bit deeper than that, what I found was the Republican Congress made budget cuts to certain programs like the Strategic National Reserves, and so they were picking and choosing what things they thought were most important to stockpile. And rather than N95 masks and gloves and all sorts of yellow gowns and whatnot, they decided to prioritize medications, life-saving medications, that there wasn't a market for at the time, that these pharmacies couldn't sell these medications, but, they wanted to be, have them available in case we needed them, right? Because that's the thing with some of these medications is there's no market for them without a pandemic, right? But if you don't buy them beforehand, then they're not available during a pandemic. So that's what they decided to stockpile, because they were picking and choosing which things that they would buy. And some of the people who worked for that administration said in interviews way back then, they said that they hadn't replenished the masks yet because they were diverting all the funds towards the life-saving medications, but also they figured that the masks would be available on the open market because they had other uses during non-pandemic times, and even construction companies were using these masks. They were so readily available on the open market. And where that little nuance comes back to bite us is where we see that China, having figured out that they were about to have a really, really big problem with their pandemic, before letting anybody else know how bad things were, they told their holdings in other countries, their corporations that had property in other countries, they told them to start shipping masks back to China. Now, China made a lot of these masks, and they had been shipped out to these other countries. Especially Australia was fucked by China. Right? They loaded up all the masks and sent them back to China without the Australians figuring out what was going on. And this is in the early days of this pandemic. So them counting on all of the masks being readily available because they're being used in other industries was a flaw, because just because they're on the store shelves doesn't mean that company can't just take it right off their own shelves and send it back to wherever that company is based. And so, there's a lot more nuance to this. You can't put the stockpiles being low completely on Trump's feet. I don't think that there was any extra oversight from him whatsoever compared to other administrations. I don't think that we could ever hope for that much out of him. But I see where the problem started a decade ago. And part of the problem is we have a government where if the president is one political leaning and the Congress is another political leaning, then you have one party trying to stifle the other with economics and make them look bad so that a bad taste gets generated in people's mouths for that political party. They're basically sandbagging, which is happening right now with economic stimulus funds that were dispersed, which are now being withdrawn from programs because that money hadn't been used. So they're like, oh, $450 million, let's just take it all back. Right? And it's like, well, that money was supposed to be there for certain reasons. Graham Stephan made a video about this just like today. And all the money shifting around, they can reverse it if they actually do end up needing it. But yeah, there's just so much nuance to it that I had not put into that previous video, and my only point in that video regarding those stockpiles was that Trump and associates would want to blame Obama for it when they had 3 years buffer between Obama's last command of those reserves and the pandemic hitting. Those 3 years being Trump years, But there's a lot of that blaming faults on the predecessor of a different political party, and trying to lay claim to the positive results of things that the foundations of those things were laid in the previous administration and only came to fruition during their term. There's a lot of that, and it's been going on my whole lifetime. So nuance does not escape me, but wherever the fuck Joe Rogan put his podcast does, because I'm just going to find someone else to listen to. He lost me.